Well, hello again, and welcome to Oslo. Yeah, I just thought I'd check in. It's been a couple of weeks, hasn't it? And we can have a little bit of a catch up, a little bit of an update on Newcastle transfers, where we think they're at in terms of budget, targets, and all the rest of it. So, but no, I thought as well, while I'm here, I might as well show you a little bit of this place, which is absolutely stunning, by the way. Been here for a few days now. I'll be up at the Ullevål Stadion later, covering Norway versus Scotland in the Euro 24 qualifier. I might even bring you a little bit of a scouting report from up there, considering one or two Newcastle targets might be in action. But yeah, we'll just take a little bit of a stroll. And I have to say, yeah, first of all, Oslo. It's a little bit of a shame, really, in many ways, that Norwegian clubs now play in the likes of the Conference League and the Europa League, and not really the Champions League anymore, because this is an incredible place to come. It's the first time I've been, and I've really been struck by the beauty of it, really. Now, yeah, it's expensive. You need a credit card with a hell of a lot of wiggle room. Ideally, someone else's credit card with a hell of a lot of wiggle room. I was in one bar last night, and I paid £11 for an IPA. It wasn't even a pint, and yeah, that was happy hour as well. So that gives you an idea of how costly it is over here. But that apart, I've got to say the people they're young, they're intelligent, they're welcoming. Yeah, it's the world's a better place for the Norwegians, I'll say that. In fact, you know, Scandinavians in general. I think I'll even chuck the Dutch in there too. So no, really enjoyed my few days here. I was sent out a day early by the Daily Mail on assignment, just to try and come here really and get a flavour for Eren Holland and, you know, his relationship with the Norwegian people. And I've got to say, it's a different type of worship to what you'll find in the UK. You know, if you go to Argentina, to Buenos Aires, you'll see Messi and Maradona everywhere. That's not the case for Holland here. There's no big billboards, no murals, no flashy ads, and it's more a respectful worship. And I think in many ways, the country, and this is a piece I've written for the Mail, which I'll link in the description below, the country is still almost coming to terms with the emergence of this superstar in their midst, and they don't quite know how to react to it. And they've just got a different culture over here as well. It's something called the law of the Jant, where everyone is equal, no one is better than anyone else. It's been fascinating to get that insight. And actually, we're just coming up now to the building where I was lucky enough to be staying just around the corner from here. The building behind us here is where Eren Holland has just bought. We will get on Newcastle News, I promise. I know that's why you're here. Yeah, he's just bought his first apartment in Oslo. Of course, he was brought up 300 miles from here in Bryn. £2.6 million apartment. And a couple of days ago, I was just having a little bit of a wander around, just to try to get a feel, a little bit of colour for the neighbourhood in which he's in. Looked up, and there he was on a balcony, incredibly. Now, on the subject of balconies, this isn't Eren Holland's, this is mine. I booked a room with a city view, and I suppose technically I was still looking out onto Oslo. Yeah, I didn't have time to ask him if he fancied a move to Newcastle. Now, that would probably be outside of Newcastle's budget. Oh, and that brings us on to that word budget, doesn't it? Yeah, don't shoot the messenger, please. Now, I wrote a story a couple of weeks ago, didn't I? About Newcastle, Eddie Howe and the recruitment team during meetings in the couple of weeks after the season. A lot of Zoom calls going on, and the numbers being put to those guys were, there's an initial cash budget of £75 million, and I understand why supporters don't like that and why supporters come back at me. You know, I think within the piece I said, you know, that is what they have been told, and that's true. You know, other journalists will confirm that, as multiple sources confirm, and that is the figure they are working towards. Now, there is wiggle room to push that to £100 million. That's what we're being told. And now, the reasons for that, you're probably screaming, why? This doesn't make sense. They're in the Champions League. Well, this isn't me. This isn't me saying the budget is that. These are the numbers we're being given when we're asking the questions. That's our job as journalists, to go and ask questions and bring you the news. And some people don't like it. Just a slight tangent. I was at an event recently, and one supporter started having a pop at me about writing the Ryan Fraser being moved into 21 story 3 or 4 days before the Carabao Cup final, saying it wasn't helpful. I'm not here to be helpful or unhelpful. I'm not here to be positive or negative. No journalist should be. We're here to bring you news and to bring you opinion too. You know, the consequence that has on Newcastle United isn't really our concern. Now, of course, I think every journalist would love the club they're primarily covering to be in the Champions League and to be flying and doing well and everyone to be getting on. Yeah, great, and that's fundamentally how it's been for the past 12 months, 18 months under Eddie Howe. I've had to readjust to that, to be honest with you. I'm not used to that. I'm not used to it. But yeah, the point I make is, you know, we're here to bring you news, and the budget numbers being spoken about in various circles, that is the truth, or what I believe to be the truth. You know, no journalist would ever write something that didn't believe to be accurate. Now, if you're asking my opinion, do I think they'll spend more than that sort of figure of 75 to 100 million pounds? Yeah, I probably do. And why do I think that? Well, 2 reasons. One, history has told us that there's been this sort of chatter before about limited budgets, and they've always gone beyond. Come back to that. And also, I just think they've got to spend more. I think if they're looking at the squad as it is, if they're going into a Champions League campaign, and we've seen they couldn't run a Carabao Cup campaign in the Premier League in parallel, in conjunction, between sort of, you know, late January, February, March time. So yeah, they're going to need better depth in terms of the squad, and for me, better quality in terms of the first team in 2 or 3, probably 2, you know, 2 key positions, perhaps at left back, and certainly a real high-end, elite level midfielder to come in, if not 2. And I know that is the way they're thinking. But in terms of the money, what will they spend? Well, why are they stressing that the budget is limited? They're doing that because they say they've overspent in previous windows. Now, should that not be cancelled out by the fact that they were speculating to accumulate, and they've since accumulated by qualifying for the Champions League? That would be my logic, but that is not the message that's coming back to us. They're saying, you know, they're right at the limit, and when you ask why, they say, well, it's the spending, the £250 million over 3 windows, allied to the fact that there's no commercial income. It's all very well inheriting a football club from Mike Ashley in terms of you're building from the bottom up, and that's great. You know, there's no fat to trim, really. He's already done it all for you. But at the same time, Mike Ashley's Newcastle United offered the new owners absolutely nothing in terms of commercial revenues. You know, backdated in terms of when you're making that 3-year calculation for FFP perspective. There's no income there. There's nothing really. So. And they've traded, you know, they haven't traded a single player. That £250 million, the only outgoing has been Chris Wood, who they ended up getting sort of around 12 to 30 million pound for, which is good business on reflection, in my opinion. And they're going to have to be clever again. That is the message coming back now. What you all want to know about is names, isn't it? And the absolute priority is midfield. It's a 6 or an 8 or a hybrid 6-8. Can they bring someone in who would anchor the midfield, who then frees Bruno to go and play further forward? Can they bring in someone like Bruno who operates in both? Or do they put all of their eggs into a James Maddison basket, who would probably play to the right of a 3 as a number 8, and that means Bruno has got to spend more time in the middle of the park in the holding role? The latest information I had from inside the club was all options are still on the table at the moment. Now, my information 10 days ago was that Maddison was the top. That tram rumble past there. Yeah, my information was that Maddison remained the top target, but Newcastle wouldn't go near the £60 million asking price, and I think that's sensible. Why should they? Why would they? A team who's just been relegated. He's got 1 year left on his contract. Now, Maddison, I said this, didn't I? 12, well, I forget when it was, but Maddison wasn't necessarily the type of profile of player they were going for, in that nothing to do with James Maddison, but proven Premier League players at a premium. That's not how they've operated so far, and they've done that very successfully. They've identified talent on the continent, add value, and they've all of a sudden doubled their value. Bruno Fernandes, £36 million. What would you get for him now? 70, 80? Sven Botman again, £32 million. Double that, £60 million on an open market now. So that's the avenue they've gone down. And I thought they would do that again this summer. And they still might. They probably will. We've seen, you know, Nicolo Barella at Inter Milan linked. Now the latest back on that was that, yes, there's been early talks. I think an intermediary has registered Newcastle's interest with Inter Milan, but all the noises coming back last week were it was very early stages. There's interest, but there's interest in others as well. And the quote, it would be a difficult deal to do. And I think we've seen the reaction, the briefings from Inter Milan to Italian presses has just showed, you know, how difficult that one could be. The point I was making about Maddison is, I think they'll do Maddison if they think they're getting value. They won't pay an absolute premium for. If you buy James Maddison for £60 million, there probably is no resale value in that. You know exactly what he is and what he isn't. While that's good because he's a fantastic player. You see the point I'm making about the recruitment strategy that they've adopted so far. So I think if they can get Maddison for somewhere, you know, 45 to 50 million pound, and that might be a structured deal, I think they would absolutely go for that, because from what I gather, you know, Eddie Howe does really like him, and I think he's a tremendous player. I think he'd be a marquee signing. I think he'd be exciting. I really hope that one does happen. Now, other names bandied around in there, you know, we've got Scott McTominay, a long-standing interest. I think he's, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 names down the list, and that would depend on Manchester United dropping what Newcastle think is a prohibitive asking price at the moment of north of £30 million. Moses Caicedo. Now, Caicedo, from what I'm led to believe, would be that dream signing in the number 6 position. Premier League experience, age profile, tremendous player. But, you know, I just think that the money there again is going to be prohibitive. Declan Rice would probably be even ahead of him in terms of, you could have your pick of anyone. But I've said for a long time now, Newcastle just aren't there yet. They're not paying £250,000, £300,000 a week wages. That would shatter a structure which has been so key to keeping things in line with FFP and maintaining a dressing room harmony. So Caicedo will probably be on their reach, even though if Brighton came down to £60 million, Newcastle would love to be in the mix. Conor Gallagher, again, you know, yes, they retain an interest, but Newcastle watched Gallagher on the last day of the season down at Chelsea, and I think they thought that the 3 Newcastle midfielders on the pitch that day performed better than him. I was there, they did, that's right, but you've always got the Eddie Howe factor. Can Eddie Howe bring in a player like Conor Gallagher, England international, 23-year-old, if you could get him for a very reasonable price, no any of the 50 they're asking, by the way, less than half that, the Eddie Howe factor. He trains players on, he makes them better, so there's always that consideration as well. Now, those are what I've spoken about, 3, 4, 5 midfielders there, and that's because that is all they're talking about at the moment. Now, of course, the left back position is the secondary priority. They then, I think, want a young-ish, versatile forward who offers a little bit of depth and more competition for the likes of Isak and Wilson. What will happen with Alan St-Maximin? Well, that's a whole other video vodcast in itself, to be honest with you. The latest information we've got is that if an offer came in and it was a good offer, I don't know what that number is, probably somewhere north of £30 million, I think Newcastle would probably consider it. But at the moment, and I've said this before, St Max falls between 2 stools. The clubs who want him can't afford him, the clubs who can afford him don't want him. And I think also he's looked at it and thought, well, you know what, they're going to be playing Champions League football next season. He might just back himself to hang around and make an impact. So at this point, I'm going to drop in my quick little scouting review from the Ullevål. Yeah. There it is. The Ullevål Stadion in Oslo. Now, I don't know if anyone else remembers this, but back in 97-98 time, playing Championship Manager, and they had the real pictures in the background. I always remember the Ullevål, and I loved it. I don't know why I was bringing teams to Norway all the time, but I always loved it. I remember the trees in the background of the stadium. It's all been developed since then, but yeah, there are those trees. Look at them, wonderful. Well, I said I'd bring you a quick scouting report, didn't I? And a little look around the Ullevål Stadium. It's nice, isn't it? On the game itself, by the way, I've spoken to you before, haven't I, about, you know, the rewrites we sometimes have to do as reporters. And here this evening, yeah, Norway were winning 1-0 on 87 minutes. I had my report done, ready to push the button, and Scotland won 2-1. So yeah, there you go. As for the two players in the Scotland team who could be classed as, you know, targets, I spoke earlier about Scott McTominay. I thought he had a good game. Again, he was in midfield, and you can see why Eddie does like him. You know, very tidy, economical on the ball, gets up and down, and he's also added that threat as well for Scotland in terms of going the other way. You know, he scored 3 goals during the last international break, and another good game. As for Kieran Tierney, the left back, who Newcastle do like, 2 concerns. One, it's the budget and the price. I don't think they would go at the 30 million plus, which Arsenal are asking for now. And 2, fitness. You know, the injury record that he does have, and I think he's a tremendous player, by the way. I think he really has got. I cover Scotland, and I've got a lot of time for him as a player and a person. But he went off there again tonight after an hour or so. Now, it wasn't injury. We've just spoken to Steve Clark. He said it was just fatigue. He felt a tightness or a quad problem during the week, and he went off. He should be okay for Tuesday. So yeah, no injury. But when he does go off, you just sat there thinking, oh, you know, that's one of the reasons why Newcastle are a little bit sticky on it. But no, a thumbs up from me for McTominay and Tierney. Yeah, he did okay, and we'll see again on Tuesday when I'll be up at Hampden for the Georgia game. So I hope you've enjoyed this little dispatch from Norway, my little wander about earlier on. Please hit like, hit subscribe. I always forget to say that at the start of the videos, but it all does help. And yeah, I'll be in touch, and we'll get something sorted where I go for a little wander through Tyneside. I think Jesmond Dean's been a popular request so far. As beautiful as Oslo is, you know, it's nothing on Jesmond Dean, is it? Or some of those spots around Tyneside. So give me a shout, let me know where, and we'll do it. Yeah, we'll do a Q&A. Take care, guys. Have a good summer. I'm going to have a couple of weeks off after this week, but yeah, we'll get something sorted, and we'll have a chat and a little stroll and maybe a pint, like I say, before next season starts. Take care. Bye bye.